call the city council meeting to order. Roll call. Council at large Boots.
Here.
At large Spear.
Here.
Council Ward number 1 Leeper.
Here.
Ward number 2 Anderson.
Here.
And Ward number 3 McNeil.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For this agenda approval, is there a motion for approval?
Second.
Boots was the first and McNeil was the second.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Boots?
Yes.
All right, so we are to the communications area, and the first, we do have somebody scheduled. It's the storm ready certificate from Tim Malott and Jody Freet. And is Ryan Wagner as well? No. That's it. All right.
So, what we're going to do is present Tipton with a Tipton with a certificate for storm ready, and that is a very important part of the community program for safety. This is a first renewal since 2015. It goes through 2021, and I want to congratulate the City Council, the fire, the law, the EMS for their dedication to the people of Tipton in taking these steps to help protect them during all hazard events.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Malott.
Yep.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Ms. Freet. So that was our only scheduled communications. I will move to the unscheduled. If there's anybody who'd like to address the city council, you can make your way to the podium. Seeing that there are none, we'll move on to the consent agenda, which can be enacted with one motion, which are the city council minutes from September 5th, cemetery committee minutes from August 30th, the development director's report from September, treasurer and investment report from August, and then the claims list. Is there anything that needs to be pulled out? Seeing there is none, is there a motion to approve? Spear with the first and Anderson with the second.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Boots?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes. All right, so now to old business, which the first one is the discussion and possible action concerning the ADA compliant entrance to 514 Cedar Street.
Yeah, the question that came out of your last meeting is, or at least the way I took it was, is there a way to get where I think you want to be, and that is find a way to allow this ADA ramp without going into the formality of vacating or doing an easement that would have a formal surveyor's legal description. And there is, you can choose to do a long-term lease, and I spoke to our attorneys, and rather than a formal legal description, it could be described as, for example, the X by Y feet of the northwest corner of the alley, or words to that effect. A way to value it, I suggested that the basis might be the assessed value of Laura's building, land only. And the attorney is thinking that that would be fine. Whenever you have a city lease anything, property, for example, for over 3 years, you have to have a public hearing. So we would need to set a public hearing at your next meeting and conduct it at the meeting after that. And then, as I understand it, there would be the opportunity then to sign a lease. If that is acceptable. So if it all goes through and public hearing happens and nobody objects in a way that persuades the council not to do it, it could be signed on October 16th.
Okay, that sounds very good. The option of a shorter lease than the three-year, the long term is not on doable at all, right?
Well, it could be, but then we'd be back.
In 2 years doing this.
Yeah. So anyway, if the council is open to doing it that way, then it can't be pursued that way.
So then for that, we need a motion stating that we wanted the long-term lease and to set up the public hearing.
Yeah, we bring that to the next meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Boots with the first, and Spear with the second.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear.
Yes.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you for your patience,
Yeah,
Ms.
thank
Tanner.
you for getting closer.
All right, so the second one under old business, which is discussion of possible action concerning the urban revitalization area within the city.
You want me to repeat where we landed and then somebody make a motion to that? Is that what you'd like to do?
Sure.
I remember that.
Oh,
okay.
second.
Boots and McNeil was first and second for what we discussed earlier.
And
McNeil,
just to clarify, it's the entire city limits and it's with light designation on residential.
Correct.
Okay.
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper.
Yes.
All right, and number three, which is discussion of possible action setting a public hearing for October 13th considering the revised sewer rate ordinance. Oh, October 15th.
Yeah, I wanted to have a bit more time to see if we can work up some scenarios with our financial advisor. And she hasn't been that, very available lately. She has other projects and such. So I thought, maybe by giving it a couple more weeks into October, we could come up with a few more options. And it would also give more time to run it as a box ad in the paper to announce it. Just to repeat what I think I said before at a previous meeting, when you have a $5.6 million estimated debt, and hopefully it gets better when the bidding happens, but there aren't that many ways out there to pay for it. And so there aren't that many options. So, I wouldn't anticipate if just to let you know, it's unlikely that we're going to come in with a whole bunch of financing options. It's just, I don't think that's in the cards. And, the other part too is, and I think I've talked to a couple of you about that, if it's put heavily on the user rate rather than a fixed rate, then it's, the revenue to keep the bond or the loan afloat becomes unpredictable. People like Tim start washing the street.
Or quit.
Yeah, well, they quit. Yeah.
And it does have an impact probably on the revenue that comes in. So not only are we having to look at different ways to do it, we have to look at it in ways that have a stable amount come in that in order to make the loan payments. And just to add one more thing, you had the example at your last meeting of someone's monthly bill, and that the $10 would add and make it another number. If you look at the scenario that Maggie Berger from Spear Financial gave at your meeting where we had everybody here talking about rates and she had spreadsheets, one of the scenarios she had was to put it all on the user rate. And you may not remember this, but that scenario called for 2 future years. In 2 upcoming years, there would be a 25% increase in each of those 2 years, so 50%. Well, if you look at that on the individual example that was given at the last meeting, if that bill was raised by 50%, you're looking at about $10 anyway. So I mean, you have to look at that too. So anyway, I'm hoping that by October 15th, we can bring a few options your way, and hopefully we can figure out where to go.
So is there a motion to set that public hearing date for October 15th? Spear with the first, and Boots with the second?
Boots?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
McNeil?
All right, number 4, which is discussion of possible action concerning electric consulting agreement with Latham, Irvin and Associates.
This item had to do with Bob Latham being at your last meeting and proposing the enclosed agreement where he would look into the possibilities of a sale of the city's share of the Liza generating station. I asked him a few questions that I pasted into this synopsis. One of them had to do with that sheet that he corrected and had us send out the next day, where it was looking at over 4 years, there was net revenue of $544,000. So you look at that and you think, well, wait a minute, why are we selling it if we're netting over $500,000 over 4 years? So I wanted him to address that question. And in his answer to that, he wrote, please note that the bulk, $408,773 out of the $544,262 of the net revenues is before net revenue before unspecified obligations for the 2014-2015 fiscal year. So he's saying, I think, that yeah, you can show revenue of a sort on one hand, but there are other obligations that Liza isn't necessarily sharing with us. So we don't know how much of that $544,000 is actually impacted by other obligations. I asked if in the end we would come up with something like offers to buy, and he said no. We would have a better idea of who the potential buyers might be, and we would have a better idea of what Tipton's obligations are as part of getting out. But he sees the next step as, depending on the report, if you pursue it, he sees the next step as doing a formal bid to see what comes in and then judge whether you think it's worth selling at that point. So his study is $5,000. And I put a statement at the end of my synopsis that, you know, for $5,000, that sounds like a lot. You don't know exactly who the seller or who the buyer might be. But if you're interested in finding out where you stand as of now, and is there potential to go to the next step of putting our share up for bids, then this would be a step toward that.
Anybody have any thoughts? Is there a motion one way or the other? motion to approve this consulting agreement?
I'll second.
Boots with the second?
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Lieber,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Booth,
Yes.
Alright, so now moving on to new business, which is closing of the road in front of the James Kennedy Family Aquatic Center for trunk or treat on the 28th.
So it's becoming very popular. Last year, 700 people came. So, of course, we want to keep everyone safe. This year, we've switched the time just a little bit. It's a little earlier. It's from 2 to 4. But I'm just asking that we can close a portion of the park road so all the kids and their family members can be safe and we don't have to worry about cars going through. And then, I thought while I have this on the agenda, maybe you would want to set trick or treat. So I also put that on there. So it never gets forgotten, but this is just a nice reminder.
Alright. Does anybody have any questions for Linda?
What did we do last year, Linda?
What did we do?
Didn't we go earlier
It was 3 to 5 last year.
for a trick or treat?
Oh, last year it was like 5 to 8 or something like that,
Yeah, it
or
was
7:30-ish. Yeah,
That was on Halloween. so-
that was on Halloween, yeah. And trunk or treat, we've not replaced Halloween unless, we get the direction from you, that's something that you want to look at. We've done both, and this is our 5th year of trunk or treat, and we've then always have had Halloween too. Because I know like Cedar Manor does a great big deal at Halloween as well, where they have lots and lots of people that go there, and I don't want to smash their parade either. And that's a safe place for our kids to go.
Alright, so then there'd be 2 parts to this motion, which would be approving the street closure and then what time for Halloween.
Correct.
Can I can't make it one.
Yeah, it could be in
Yeah, I
one.
would go ahead and approve the street closing, and I think if you said 5 to 7:30 or 5 to 8.
Whatever you decide.
I think it was 5 to 8 last.
5 to 8, yeah, I think that's what it was, yeah.
Alright,
Okay.
so the motion was made to close the street and have the Halloween trick-or-treat hours on October 31st from 5 to 8. Spear made the motion,
Second.
and Lieber with the second.
Spear,
Yes.
Lieber,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Booth,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Alright, so then we'll move on to the next one, which is the discussion of possible action concerning the street closures for the Rock and Ride Fest on October 6th.
Correct. So I tried to be as specific as I could be for this. There's still some things that the chamber is working on, but just to give you a general idea, that the gravel bike race, that's 106.73 and 16 miles, is going to start at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I've asked the Tipton Lions Club, just as they did last year's when that race starts on 4th Street, to make sure intersections are blocked so a car won't come out all the way then into Inland Road. And barricading the street, it's changed this year. Last year, it was Cedar to Meridian. This year, the chamber would like Cedar to Lynn, just because it's going to be easier to fence things in. And I am not sure on the time yet with that. We like to get that done as early as possible, because for Touch a Truck, what happened is we had a car that was in that area, and then I had to call the police department to try to figure out whose car it was to get it out, because I didn't want him to get trapped. Because once things start coming in, you're trapped, and I try to be courteous that way, that people aren't trapped. So I'm thinking it'll be relatively early, but honestly, I do not know the time yet, and I certainly will let you know the time. But I wanted to give you the itinerary of what was going on that day. It's going to be really busy. I'm already tired.
questions or discussion with Linda? McNeil with the first to approve and Lieber with the second.
Lieber,
Yes.
McNeil, Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you,
Thank
Linda.
you, Linda.
Number 3, which is discussion of possible action concerning the pay application number 4, the hire construction for $106,848.17. Brian?
Yeah, this is recommended by the project engineer. I believe it's, for the most part, concrete.
All right, any other questions or any questions at all?
When will they be done? Do you know, Steve?
No, he left.
Let it go along.
It's
That's
okay.
all right. We'll have the department.
I'll ask him.
Yeah.
What's that water main guys found digging?
We'll have a,
We'll pay him anyway.
yeah. So is that a motion?
Yes.
Spear with the first and Lieber with the second?
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Lieber,
Yes.
And to number 4, which is discussion of possible action concerning the city's response to the DOT speed study on Highway 38 Cedar Streets.
Leave it alone.
All right.
You
So,
turn it, if you raise it up to 25, they'll be doing 35. So, leave it alone.
all right.
What about, they had 2 recommendations.
Yes.
I thought you had to do both all or none.
I think you can do either.
Oh.
They're gonna slow it down coming in town
Right.
or leaving town, however you want to say it.
I think extending the 45 would be okay.
So, the motion is to leave the 25-mile and extend the 45-mile.
Leave
Correct.
it 20 now.
Or, yeah, sorry. Leave the 20 and extend the 45. The Boots with the first on that and McNeil with the second.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yeah.
Spear,
Yes.
Lieber,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Alright, number 5, which is a resolution approving the street finance report for road use tax funds.
Yes,
Melissa?
this is our annual report that the Iowa DOT requires us to complete. Just to point out a couple differences from last year's report, on section B5 is where we acquired our 2018 street bond payment of the 1.5 million. And then, in correlation with that, there was a payment of 110,000 in section E3. That was one pay app that came in right around the end of the fiscal year. So that's captured on this report as well. Other than that, there weren't any significant differences from last year's report.
Alright, is there any questions from Melissa? Seeing there are none, is there a motion? Anderson with the first and Boots with the second.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Lieber,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots,
Yes.
Alright, number 6, which is discussion and possible action concerning the approval of canceling our current copier lease and going with Access Systems. Melissa?
We were approached by a representative from Access Systems. They wanted to get information about our current copier contract to see if they could provide us better services and options. So they reviewed that and then came back with us and provided us with a sample machine that we've been borrowing. It's been a couple weeks now, so we've had a sample machine aside our current machine so that we can test it out and see how it functioned and compared to what we currently had. And they also provided us with a second floor printer, which is what we don't have, which has allowed us, specifically more people who are on the second floor, don't have to constantly come up and down the stairs. So even with all of that though, and compared to our current package of our current copier, none of that has changed. So we're still getting, anytime we need toner, if we would need some type of labor performed on the machine, it's all under that contract price, which would still save us about $232 a month switching to Access Solutions. So one thing that is different from the Sharp, which would be the new copier, to our current copier, is it produces about 10 pages less per minute, which for us isn't a huge deal. And it's actually quite quieter, so for billing and stuff, it's helped tremendously. And just overall, we've gotten everyone's opinions who have used it while it's been there, and it's been a very positive thing. So we did the calculations, and the annual savings is about $2,700. Total savings for our lease would be about $13,000. Our current lease expires in June of 2020, so they would buy us out of that lease, and then we would go into this new contract.
Yeah, it's a little like, you see ads for cell phones. The one cell phone company says they'll buy out if you switch to them. They had a program like that. That's awesome.
Any questions for Melissa? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Leeper with the first,
Second.
and Spear with the second.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
All right, moving on to the next one, which is an update concerning the Great Places Grant application.
Yeah, we're going to have an item on your next agenda that is more specific to this application, but I wanted to give you a heads up. When you did goal setting, you mentioned wanting to see if we could apply for more grants. Just to give that from a different perspective, I once had a council member who, when he left the council, he was elected to the local board of supervisors. And I was talking to him one day, and he was telling me about a department head they had who had phenomenal success at writing and being awarded grants. But he said to me, we gotta stop him, we gotta slow him down. We can't keep up with the match requirements. Well, I wanted to alert you to that because there are a couple of situations coming up where there are going to be match requirements. One of them is this Great Places grant. The grant is $400,000. It's a one-to-one match, so the grant has been divided up among the cities and the county. They had kind of a base amount for everybody, and then I think it was a per capita amount for the rest. Well, the amount of the $400,000 attributable to Tipton is around $103,000, which means if we fully utilize the grant, we have to match it with $103,000. So unless some other town drops out and frees up their grant, we're looking at, if we maximize everything, a project of around $206,000. So we're looking at a number of projects at the park, and we'll have a list of them, and I'm hoping it'll be broken out to what it's estimated to include. But, you know, there's a couple ways to look at it. One is, can we provide the match? The other one is, if we pursue the things in the grant, we're having some nice improvements for basically half off. And among the things that we were talking about were replacing the timber steps at the soccer fields. One would be replaced with concrete steps, the other one would be torn out. We would have what we hope will be an ADA accessible ramp coming around the north end where the slope is less severe, and it would be like a 6-foot wide sidewalk that would come all the way around to where the new steps would be. There would be a play structure with fall protection where the north shelter is off the parking lot. We're looking at including in that project a handicapped accessible swing that would accommodate a wheelchair. We're looking at different options that I don't have information on yet. One in the original pre-application was a splash pad we could look at doing that. We could maybe look at a couple other things. But we hope to come back with a breakout of suggestions with you, and I just want you to understand that in order to fully utilize the grant, there's a match requirement that we'd have to come up with. It's sort of the same with another item that's going to be on that night. In fact, I have an item here, the next one, where I'm asking for a work session on October 1st. We have an opportunity to apply for block grants. In one case, it could be used to possibly do a combination project where we're trying to fix I&I problems in that track 2 census area, the one that's LMI qualified. Also, Brian Brennan asked a question. Borderline, the eastern borderline of track 2 comes down the middle of North Avenue. And there is the possibility of combining in a replacement of the water main under North Avenue, or in the right-of-way of North Avenue. Well, that's not 100% grant. There would probably be a 50-50 grant. So if we apply between the two, let's say, if this is just a hypothetical, but if the entire project was $600,000, we would probably get no more than $300,000. We'd have to find a way to match $300,000. But that's better than having, at some point in time, to have to pay it all. So anyway, we're gonna, in the next item, I'm gonna ask for a work session, but I wanted to make you aware of, you know, with success at grants, there's also the problem of coming up with the match.
All right. Any questions for Brian on the Great Places? All right, then we'll move on to the next one, which is like you said, the possible action requesting a work session on October 1st concerning options for the Sager project and the North Avenue water main project.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. We'd like to come up with sort of a synopsis of what the choices are. I was hoping to have it on this agenda, but we found out a little bit more late last week, and there just wasn't enough time to put it together in a way I wanted you to have it to make sense. And so I'm asking if we can have another work session if it works for you before your next meeting.
Everybody? 5 o'clock. All right, is there a motion for that? Lever made the first. And McNeil with the second.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil, Booth,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
All right, so now moving to the next one, which is number 9. Discussion of possible action concerning the approval of purchasing transformer basements. Lloyd?
Hello. As you remember at the last council meeting, I asked for consensus to go ahead and order this, and I said I'd bring this as formal approval. I did go ahead and order them from Fletcher Reinhardt. They were the cheapest by far. Well, not really, because the second closest was $15 difference. So, but we went with them, and they're on the order. Then, after that council meeting, after I ordered them, Tipton Structural indicated to me in a meeting that we had that they may do something different, and the transformer that I wanted to use isn't big enough now. So, we have a transformer in stock. Now I have to order a different basement. So, because in the past, Tipton always bought rebuilt transformers. And these things are in stock, and I'm not going to get rid of them. We're going to use them and get rid of them. So, with that being said, I'm going to have to order another basement. So I'm going to have to bring that back to get approval for that. They solidified it today, because I said, now you're sure? Well, give me a week or so to get this really sure figured out. And then today, when I went out there to talk to Larry, he said, yes, we want the bigger transformer. So I'll have to bring that back to you. But we'll have a basement for this other one, which it's too late now, I can't cancel it, so we'll have it to use, so.
So this will be just for the approval of purchase of one?
No, you're gonna still have to buy two,
Okay.
because the order was sent, it's too late to cancel it. So,
All right, is there any questions for Floyd? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Lieber with the first, and McNeil with the second?
McNeil?
Yes.
Boots?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
Number 10, which is a discussion of possible action concerning the purchasing of fault indicators.
okay, fault indicators are something that we just, since I've been here, we started using them here in Tipton. These here, what they do is that they tell us, they give us an idea where the fault is. It doesn't pinpoint it, but it tells us it's faulted between this transformer and this transformer, or this pole and this transformer. And then as you walk down the line, you'll look for a red light flashing on each transformer. We use a fiber optic cable, it sticks on the outside. That takes it so we don't have to open and close every transformer basement to look at it. They're pricey, but as we found out last night, John and I got called last night about 7:15 from one of the women that lived in the trailer court, and she said that she heard a big bang. We had another faulted cable out there at the trailer park. So, with that being said, these things are a godsend. They cut down on a lot of guesswork, a lot of time. The lineman's not out there plugging into a faulted cable in front of a transformer, so, or having it blow up in his face on the pole when he's up in the air. So, Fletcher Reinhardt again was the lowest price on this, and I think originally I put on there, I had him quote 12. Oh, the way we're burning through them, I figured I better get 24 of them. Lemon Street's gonna gobble up a good chunk of those, since that's all three-phase. So you have to put one on between each transformer or each sectionalizing cabinet to the next one. So what it does is it reflects back. If the fault is down there by where the camera's at, and there's a transformer behind that, and I'm standing here and this is the cabinet, what it does is it goes this way and then it reflects back. And then the fault will tell us, it'll tell us between here and there. And anything back down that line, past that there, they won't show a fault. So it allows us to isolate, and in case of it's loop fed, we can pick everything back up that way. And it speeds the process up quite a bit.
All right. We'll Lieber with the first to approve, and McNeil with the second.
Boots?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
McNeil?
All right, and number 11, which is action concerning approval of purchasing cable for the Cedar Poly project.
Where do I start on this one, Brian? Brian and I have had a lot of discussion about this. Trying to think of the words to use here for a second. What? That was the first thing.
Pencils as you gotta do, figuring it all up.
Any rate, we were talking, there's a chance that what we're gonna do here isn't gonna be big enough. There's a chance. I don't know this for a fact, because they're not telling us, well, I know what's going on, but this deal I'm sworn to secrecy on. So I can't even tell you. So, sorry Stu, no scoops in the paper this week. But at any rate, if they do what they're saying that they want to do, these prices that you see here, basically it's going to be about quadruple that for the wire. So, you know, I mean, we're looking at a price of $43,000, which I highlighted in yellow. That's after receiving the order, they put a hole in this wire for us. But until I know for sure what it is exactly they're going to do, I really think we need to hold off, don't you, Brian?
Yeah, one thing that, in another way of kind of explaining it to myself anyway, was, you might remember, Floyd identified 3 major projects, the first 3 major ones. One of them was downtown alley, one of them was the industrial park, and one of them was kind of a residential.
Yeah, North Street,
Yeah.
13th.
Yes. This, you know, in my way of trying to explain it to myself, this would be like a variation of that second project, moved up and maybe supersized because of the size of the wire needed. So Floyd's trying to figure out the best way to serve the industrial park because of this one project, but not just it. There might be other businesses that come in. There might be other people who add on to what they're doing. So the concern is not to undersize it, but then the other concern is how much do you oversize it? And that's, I think, what we're trying to figure out.
Right now, I've talked to Owen Wyatt from Shermco Engineering. Him and I kind of think the same way on this project. I wish I could just go out there and flip the commercial side and the industrial side from one side of the road to the other, because I could fix a lot of problems that way by moving one of our substations out from downtown and moving it out there. But that's not what I was dealt with. So I'm trying to figure out a way to make this work. We could still think about talking about moving a substation out there eventually, which I think in realistic terms, that's probably a better idea. If we supersize this, and let's say they don't do this, the one thing that I could do with this is that I can also use as an alternate feed to come back around through the industrial park and pick up the town on South Street and that feeder back to the plant. So, but it's an awful expensive way to do it. I would like to have more information before we make this decision from them, but it really is going to put us under a crunch.
It may be more expensive, but it sounds like you could kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Well, yes and no. If I supersize it, yeah, I can still use it for that, but moving the substation actually has more advantages. I mean, personally, on a level of electrical work, doing the substation would be my first choice. But then we got to get a lot. We got to get permission from ITC. We have to have a study done, which will tell us if they're going to let us move it or not. And then we have to get permission from them also to erect on their transmission poles. And that'll be another study. So I think some of you that were on the council when we did the fiber optic cable, we found that all out then, that they were not going to allow us to put our stuff on their poles without a study being done. And getting permission from them could possibly take a year or better by the time you went through the study and everything else. So, yeah, I prefer the substation idea because it's the best long-term solution for it. But if push comes to shove, we got to make a decision here in the next couple of weeks, month, whatever. We're probably going to have to put the bigger cable in. But with that also being said, there's a lot of overhead work that needs to be done on that that south street, on that feeder, to bring it up to par to be able to handle that amperage. John and Josh came up with a wonderful idea. I hadn't even thought about this, was that we would take the industrial park. We do have a spare breaker in our substation building now, that we could make the industrial feeder, and it would be an industrial express. And when I say an express feeder, nothing else is allowed to tap onto that except for the industrial park. That would be the only thing on that. We would separate everything else out to be on the east feeder from that point on. So
in regards to this, are you looking for us to table it until you get more information?
I really think we should. That's my honest
Is there a
opinion.
motion?
I think we should.
Second?
Anderson's first, Spear with a second.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Lieber,
Yes.
McNeil, Boots.
Yes.
Sounds to me like you got a couple of good employees there.
I have excellent employees.
Yes, sir. I agree.
Just to add to that, if we, depending on the timing of whether there's a strategy that comes up, we may have to ask for a special meeting.
Mhm.
You know, we don't know yet, but it might call for it.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Floyd.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, on to the reports, the mayor's report. I don't have anything this week. Council?
Did I say anything about what I did today?
No.
No? Okay.
Committee?
What did you do?
No. City manager?
I have just one thing, I wanted to ask for a clarification, going back to the public hearing on the sewer rate ordinance for October 15th. I had a question in my write-up asking if you wanted to schedule it at the beginning of the meeting, like 5:30, or if you wanted to set a particular time, like they have it at 6, which might give more people more of an opportunity to appear if they'd like to.
Yeah, 6 to be good.
Okay.
For when?
That was for department heads?
Pardon?
When is the 6th?
6 o'clock on your October 15th meeting, we would do the public hearing not before 6.
Oh, okay, but we'll still meet at 5:30.
Right.
Yes. Floyd?
I want to dispel a couple of rumors about the electric utility, especially the generation plant for one. A lot of people think that we go over and start the Caterpillar and the MTUs and we walk away and leave them. No, we do not. I sat over there this afternoon for a little bit, and then I went over after we got them stabilized, and Tanya taught me how to put the Fairbanks online and started. But at any rate, what I want to bring up is the simple fact that we have to have somebody over there when we're running those engines too. It's important. Today we were told by MISO to generate, so we did. It's a contractual obligation that the city has. When I went back over there, I'd been gone maybe 30 minutes. I went back out to go get the readings off the engine and to check the fuel tanks, and we have a fuel leak. That's one of the things I want people to understand, is that we can't leave $4.5 million worth of equipment to a computer screen and hope that all the alarms work. I don't trust them, I never have, and I probably never will. And I want to dispel that rumor. And then the other rumor I want to dispel about the power plant is that I don't know how it was promised to you or anything like that, but there will be a 5 to 10 minute delay before they start and pick the town back up. It's not automatic. They will start, but it'll be within 5 to 10 minutes. Me and a previous city manager, we disagreed on that. One day we had a blink on the system And if it had not been for Jim driving by the power plant that day, they would have sat there and ran all weekend until somebody came in on Monday, and they probably would have been ruined. Because they had no load on them, they would not sync to the grid and add load. So I've had all those settings changed. I feel it's in our best interest to do that because of the cost of the equipment. And, you know, yeah, it's an inconvenience, but I think it's very important that, you know, instead of having a blink and the engines are confused and they don't, and I mean, they didn't know what to do. And from what we could figure out, they had been sitting down there running for 2.5 hours when we looked at the logs. So that is something I want to stay away from and stuff like that and not have issues like that. That's a lot of money.
Yes.
Then the last thing I want to bring up is we do need help in the electric utility in the worst of ways. We have more projects going on this year than I can ever remember since I've been here. And I'll be the first one to tell you when I got here, this place, the electric department lacked a serious sense of direction, lacked leadership. But the guys have come around. Now we have the money to fix the things and start taking on projects and doing things like Lemon Street, these things. And the guys take a great sense of pride in their work. You know, they've worked, I don't know if they're done up there on Tipton structural fabrication, but they've been up there, I mean, they've been there since 7 o'clock, I mean, they've been at work since 7 o'clock this morning. So, with that being said, you know, it was a hard deal getting them to start doing some of the things that I wanted. But all in all, everything has fallen into place how I wanted it to. I would put them against any other utility in the state of Iowa. As far as employees, the quality of the work, the quantity of the work, everything that they do. They're very safety oriented, a lot better than I ever was. But you have to understand, I was taught a lot different than they were taught. When I started 30 years ago, and then 5 years after that, it's going to be 25 years ago, you stood on the roof of the house and you barehanded secondary on the asphalt shingles, and you put split bolts together up there, and that's how you squeeze those connectors, barehanded. And if the old guy that I worked with caught you wearing gloves, he'd kick you right square in the back of the rear and say, take them gloves off. So I was taught a lot differently. So I think I have one of the best utility crews in the state of Iowa. And that's because I think we are the best. We are the best at what we do. So that is something I wanted to say.
Yep.
I see a need for you and Steve to have a few more people.
Thanks a lot.
Or other be discussed.
Steve?
I just want to give you a quick update on the street progress, because there is good progress. And South Street is poured. There's like 3 or 4 driveways yet to do. And then, of course, the seeding, and I think they might get that done, I was hoping by the end of this week, but certainly next week. So the racetrack will be open. And we're anxious to get our speed sign out there, right, Lisa?
Yeah, it's hoping that today.
Okay, yeah, we do have that ready to go. An update on Lemon Street, people keep asking, what about Lemon Street? Nobody's ever down there. Well, there's been some reasons for that, and we're waiting now for the 3 manholes, the new manholes, to be tested. They need to hold a certain amount of pressure for a couple of hours before they're accepted. The new line needs to be televised to make sure that there's nothing in it through the construction process. That takes a bypass situation. They got to plug the line and bypass the sewer to Orange Street, and that's scheduled for tomorrow. So hopefully, and it takes about 2 days to do all that testing. Hopefully we'll get that done tomorrow or the next day. the project on Cedar Street is not anything that any of us here are responsible for. So don't take the heat on that one. But they are doing some, that little machine is like a baby machine compared to the one Nash brought in here. It's only cuts 2 foot wide. But there's 1,700 feet there that they're gonna patch. So that'll smooth the ride out for a couple years till we get a real street.
What do they think the timeline was on that?
They'll be done, that's a good question, I was gonna mention that. They're gonna be done from 7th Street to the south end here by tomorrow evening. So it won't affect the homecoming parade. And then they're gonna, on Wednesday, they're gonna be working from Casey's on north, so we should be good.
Okay.
Okay?
Hey, Steve, we got a 2-inch overlay on that.
Just a 2-inch, it's just a mill and fill 2-inch overlay, so, just to smooth the ride out. It's a $98,000 project for 3 days, just for a smooth ride for 2 or 3 years. A smoother ride, I don't say it's gonna be good. They did, in fact, the engineers told me they wanted to add a little bit more to it. The field guys did, and they came and started marking it out, and the engineer that's in charge of it shook his head, no, you're not doing that, here's all you've got, do it. And so there's still gonna be some rough spots, but it's gonna be better.
All right, thank you, Steve.
And on a note on Cedar Street, just so you know, I'm supposed to go up there at 6:45 and turn the lights off from flash to regular operation. And tomorrow morning, I'll be back up there at 7. Travis came up this morning, made sure there was no accidents when I switched it to flash. So you're saying that where are they gonna be at Wednesday?
Should be north of 11.
Okay, so then we're probably not gonna have to do anything Wednesday, but so if anybody asks you, it'll be from 7 in the morning till almost 7 o'clock in the evening.
All right,
So,
thank you. All right, so now we're down to adjourn. Is there a motion for adjournment? Boots with the first.
Second.
And Spear with the second.
Spear,
Yep.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil, Boots,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes. All right, so we are adjourned. Thank you.
All right.